What's been going on, man? How are things?
I've been, as I said before, I've been really busy, and getting this track release has just been giving me a bit of a lift lately, and making me want to get back in the studio. So
Yeah,
many thanks.
no worries. Have you started something new?
Yeah, two or three things I've had
Mm.
going for a while, just literally pushing for time to get them completed. But yeah,
Yeah, so I'm putting this video on YouTube. So YouTube people, this is soZen who's released the new track Pop Belge on the label, which I really like. And there's quite a cool story behind this track, isn't there? Because we had a little Zoom a couple of months ago when I was in Egypt, and
that's
we
right.
you told me a little bit of the story about Pop Belge, but maybe you can remind me again as well, like the whole
Yeah,
kind of concept of that track, how it came around.
yeah. So I was a professional road racing cyclist in early '80s, and obviously I'm older than I look, but at that point the sport was not as clean as it was now, and it's not big and it's not clever, but we were given performance enhancing drugs at some races, some at quite a high level, and there was a drug that was never named at the time, and only in Belgium, or seemingly mostly in Belgium, you were given this where I was living, and the tune is about the experience of that, because the first time that I was given it, I wasn't told I'd been given it. It was a little bit underhanded, and me and another rider.
What
Um,
how did they give it to you then? Like in
well,
what form?
this was in a bidon in a drinking bottle that you'd take in the race. And I remember that there was a moment before the race when I offered to get the bottles ready, and my coach sort of snapped at me, "I've prepared the bidons," and I was like, "Okay." And yeah, as it turned out, the reason it was such a profound experience was because me and one other guy in the team crashed early on in the race, and had to spend the most of the day in the what's called the broom wagon, where they just stick you in a van to get you to the finish, like, but 2 or 3 hours in a
Okay.
van in the most bizarre head state after this thing we drank. We carried on drinking because we were thirsty, but we were no longer using energy. So this sort of energy was just bottling up inside of us. And also, apart from that day, it was given to me, when I knew it was usually intramuscular injection. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was just the most. Thankfully, my coach was more prudent than most, and I've probably only had to take it probably 3 or 4 times in a 3 or 4 year period. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
it was such a profound experience that I've been dying to make a tune about it, because it was yeah, and also
What did it feel like when you had it then?
um it was just a huge rush of energy. The hairs on the back of your neck would stand up, and
Yeah.
you were literally ready for anything.
Okay.
And the story has kind of a musical ending, which was quite weird, because obviously being a professional sportsman, I hadn't been paying much attention to music. It was a period of my life where yeah, it was a bit annoying at that for that reason. I'd sort of I missed out on a chunk of music that was going on. But that night, after that experience back, we got back to the hotel where we were staying, and there's not a chance that we were going to sleep. And so we went off into this sort of reasonably small Belgian town that we knew nothing about, and found a club. And I think at the time, I didn't really relish music at that time. I'd grown up on sort of progressive rock and everything, but at that point, people like orchestral maneuvers in the dark and stuff like that would be making basically quite sequency. And I went from being very suspicious of its sort of robotic nature. When me and my friend, we were literally running up the walls in this tiny little pub
Yeah.
club, sort of 1 in the morning, when we'd normally be well asleep for many. Yeah, it was the most ridiculous experience. And then we had on the ferry home the next day, just with a slight headache, thinking, what was that about? And yeah, and I've always wanted to. Yeah,
That's epic. First, which town in Belgium was it? Do you remember?
I
Was it?
think it was Assa, just outside Brussels. Assa.
Okay. Okay.
It might have been a small town, just that was a little bit. We stayed there most of the summer each year, but we were moved around quite a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And what year was it? Was this?
This would have been. Bear with me. I think 83, 80, 82, 83.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
And
like people like Bradley Wiggins' father was still racing in Belgium at the time, and yeah, that's sort of an era.
okay. Yeah, I don't know who that is.
No, sorry. Yeah.
So 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 it's an experience that happened to you about back in '83, and now we're fast forward to 2024, and we're releasing a DNB track with that memory and life experience as the concept.
Yep.
Yeah. Is that so? Did you, for all those years, have it in mind? Did you make a song about it one
Oh
day?
no, no, I didn't. As I say, at that point in my life was probably the least musically aware part of my life, because there was such a big distraction from it. And once I retired from cycling, I had a convoluted route. I did get slowly back into music. I learned guitar when I was small. When I was 11, I learned classical guitar, and then got into rock bands and things, just power chords and very musically quite simple, but I loved it. And then so I kind of got a guitar again when I after I retired from bike racing. I was 27, and I sort of launched into all the things I've been missing with all the discipline of the sport. Became, I suppose, a full-time hippie for a bit with but I did have some great music experiences there. And had that still had that sort of thing with sequence music. I wasn't drawn towards blatantly synthesized music for the sake of it. It didn't attract me. But I started hearing when people used a sample drum beat, and I love the concept that they'd just taken the one bar when the drummer was literally so on it, and just looped that, and I love that. I mean, that's what hip hop was born around.
Yeah.
And even though I wasn't a massive fan buying loads of music, I was aware that this was so. And when I got back to England, and I've been traveling for a good while, and I got back to England, I wasn't relishing the concept, but the thing that had happened in England was free parties and jungle, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I realized then, yeah, the vibe was massive, and I also at that point thought, if there's a way that you can sequence this, I want to get involved, and yeah, and it's still quite a long, convoluted journey from there, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
then how
Yeah.
I found a way to that I could tell the story, sort of.
That's amazing. I appreciate the Thelonious Monk t-shirt as well. It's been a while
Oh, thank you.
since I've listened to him. He's a legend.
Absolutely. Have you seen him the way he dances behind the band
No, I
when,
don't think I've only listened to some of his music, but I don't think I've ever
yeah,
watched any videos.
he has a little shuffle around behind the band where he's kind of imperceptibly dancing. It's yeah.
Yeah, nice. Oh, it's a lovely Stellar Artoris glass there.
Oh yeah, the chalice.
So I know that some people in my Discord are going to be really motivated when they know that you're 60 years old. That's right, isn't it? Are you 60?
61 now. I was 60 when we spoke last. Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
happy birthday. He's 61, very young and still on fire and making music. What's the secret?
Yeah. Yep. I think partly the professional sports thing, although it was a little bit unhealthy in places, as I've mentioned, for the most part, it was a really healthy lifestyle, super healthy, to extreme, and that's why I enjoyed it. Plus, I think that probably paused your aging thing a little bit, just looking after your body to that extent for that period of my life when a lot of people are with a still growing body are giving it quite a bit of abuse. I think I was just really fortunate that I got straight into a sport. That's probably got a bit to do with it. And the fact that I was doing something I enjoyed, which is a rare and a privilege, isn't it? I was doing something I totally enjoyed and being paid, not massively, but
Yeah,
uh, and then the period traveling,
yeah.
where although I was working hard in every country I lived in, I loved it, and I love that sort of feeling of being sort of slightly culture shocked and not quite knowing
Mm,
what's going to happen next.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think that long period of my life, sort of 5.5 years or so of that also put the sort of normal aging thing. I didn't get the sort of aging through routine and stress. I did, I feel like I sidestepped a bit of that there, and I've
Yeah,
probably just carried that on
yeah.
through. Yeah,
That's amazing. And it reminds me a little bit of myself because I've just only really focused on doing my passion, which is like music, since I was like in my early 20s, you know? And
yeah,
I had like some part-time jobs and stuff here and there, but I never like fully went into like a 9 to 5 or something that I didn't enjoy ever, you know. I
yeah,
was
yeah,
always just focused on trying to make the music happen, like
yeah,
from the beginning. So I think like just being more in tune with doing what you actually like
yeah,
regardless. Obviously it's not easy, but at least you're doing what you love. And so for you,
yeah.
that was cycling at the time, was it?
From leaving school for a decade or so, yeah, yeah, or more, yeah, 11, 12 years. And then once I got into making music, um, I struggled with making that a means of an income
Yeah.
because then I would have been, and I knew that it would have been almost too lucky to have go from one career, which was doing what I enjoyed, to another. And obviously, the music industry isn't quite as well. Neither industry is simple. Uh, and at the time, I got into having a studio and recording bands and then writing jungle. Um, it could pay the rent, through by virtue of recording bands and everything. But it was that period when I think we're talking sort of 2002 onwards, where for a brief period there, people stopped paying for music, didn't they? And
Yeah.
MP3.com and that, and the industry took a while to kind of get itself together. And I mean, it didn't bother me too much because we were enjoying making the dance music, but it was a weird time to get into making music when the industry was turned upside down, wasn't it, by the MP3 thing? And so yeah, that was it was kind of a struggle then to try and do again what I enjoyed doing and make a living out of it. And now I think now I think partly you've said it a few times in on YouTube about writing the music for yourself, and that was a big turning point for me. I came to that realization during lockdown on the home trainer watching your tutorials, and I was just could not wait to get I needed to get a bit of kit together at that point, and yeah, but that sort of rekindled my enthusiasm, and yeah, and writing music for yourself so that you're happy with it is just the
That's so epic to hear that, because for me, sometimes I'm just on my own in a room speaking to a camera, and I sometimes don't even know that it will influence someone or not. I've got no
sure.
idea. So
I was a huge part of my what the music I produce now. It's hugely inspired by yourself.
that's amazing, bro. And the last track that you released on the remix competition that you won,
Yeah,
that was sick. People really really liked that, so I was really happy to yeah get you on another track on another release. And
yeah, that
yeah,
was brilliant. That was such, yeah. Thank you for that as well because I barely had the time to do the remix, but I enjoyed it so much, and the results and the numbers were amazing, weren't they? I've had digital releases before where didn't approach any numbers, anything like that, and that's partly down to your efforts in promotion and as
yeah,
well,
well,
which
we're still a baby label, like really. I haven't paid for advertising or anything. Like it's just completely
no,
just from the community. So
yeah,
yeah, man. Yeah, it's sick. Yeah. Um, and yeah, Pop Belge is great. I enjoy that. It's got a similar feeling a little bit with your little jazzy chords that you do, that kind of
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
that's right. I'm and I this, excuse me, the tunes I'm working on now, they still have a little bit of that flavor. I sometimes have to pull myself away from deliberately trying to add musicality to a tune. It's funny you said that, I think in the last week, about how it's ignoring perfect musicality is or
Yeah.
it's generally more exciting. That's where you're going to find and even with jazz, even though jazz already does that to some extent, it's still
Yeah.
quite formulaic. And so yeah, I have to almost forcibly pull myself away. What I found is when you're creating a, a, a nice mid-range bass with plenty of clarity and you're adding harmonics, uh, they've got a pitch and they're like partials of a sound, and so you can end up where the sound you're just chasing down a lovely characterful mid-range bass, but when I mess around with the piano alongside it, those partials you've created, quite often you've created quite a complex chord if you can listen to the partials that you've created, like a ninth or an 11th or a 13th
Mm,
musically.
mm, mm.
And so then it's easy to find a chord that fits with that exact sound. And
Yeah.
yeah, so if that's how I was, but it is handy because you can build pads out of that then that match
Very
use
clever.
that.
Very clever.
Yeah,
Yeah. So kind of like taking what harmonics you've created through the mid bass design and sort of
yeah,
picking apart what chord that could
yeah.
potentially be, and then
Rather than
structuring.
imposing a key on it initially, but then
Yeah.
yeah, letting that discover the key for you.
That's a good concept, because I don't think so much about that, but certain mid basses, they just sort of, when you're picking other sounds to go with them,
Yeah,
uh yeah, like sometimes a certain pad or arp, even if it's in the same key, like root note wise, just doesn't work as well as others.
that's right. Yeah. And it's like you've said, is sometimes it doesn't really matter how much musical theory you've got, but those happy accidents sometimes can be traced back to that you've actually created quite a complex key just in that one dominant
Sound.
bass sound that you've
Yeah,
you've
yeah, yeah.
created. Yeah.
That's amazing. So, do you have you got like sort of musical training at all yourself, or not so much?
I just that I when I learned guitar as an 11-year-old, it was classical guitarist, a French guy. He was a legend, and he actually got me to sight read. I must have actively forgotten that because I can. It would take me a day to read a piece of tablature now, but but I must have, yeah, because I got into rock bands and got really ignored it and got into power chords and everything like that and what
Yeah.
noise the instrument was making, all very musically basic. And still, when I got into dance music, I think I was actually actively ignoring some of the musical knowledge I had because I was excited by the lack of it and the you know the power you could get across without it. And
Yeah, yeah.
I'm only now trying to yeah, like that video that you made the other week was
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
poignant for me. I've always trying to balance that whether or not it's of great benefit and how much I should be ignoring it. And
Yeah,
yeah,
you can
I
know
do.
too much. You can actually know too
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
And I've
yeah,
known people that have I can't remember who it was. I knew two guys, they worked together. They tried to be a production duo together. One of them had no theory training and the other one was like classically trained and had like all the rules and everything about music and what keys and scales work and what don't. And they were
yeah,
never actually able to match and make drum and bass because the one who knew all of the things would constantly
yeah,
correct him. He was
yeah,
like, "No, you can't do that there because of that." You know,
yeah. And like you
and
said,
they ended up never making anything.
I can believe that. Yeah, I can imagine that battle going on in my head if it had gone the wrong way. But thankfully, I've managed to resolve
Yeah,
it. Yeah, yeah, because like you said, it's the dissonance sometimes when you've made something wrong that is just so. I was going to say that was the also the difference between what steered me from jungle because I actually made jungle and had releases on vinyl in jungle. It was already old school. It was already referencing a sound from 7 years before, a label called Warehouse Wax, but um, using quite old noises and old breaks. But what attracted me to Neuro was, much like you, the minute I heard some really off D tunes that were so off, they were pretty much a different note, and they're
yeah,
just like
yeah,
front and center of a tune. I was like, that's so good. They've heard how wrong that is, and yeah, that literally made it like you. It literally
yeah,
turned the corner for me, sort of
yeah.
in what was achievable.
That's amazing. What kind of what kind of music do you listen to like at the moment when when you're not working or when you're just chilling out at home? Like, I guess you listen to a whole range of stuff, right?
Really diverse, yeah. I, what I don't do that a lot lately since I've started producing music is get nostalgic and listen to stuff I listened to when I was younger. I just kind of steer clear of that, even because YouTube's
Okay.
quite tempting. Like you can go back, oh, look at this album I had, and because
Okay.
and the longer you've been buying music, the longer that could go on. But I tend to try and listen to new music more than I do older music. Um,
What, in drum and bass or other stuff as well?
More other genres than drum
Yeah.
bass. I
Yeah.
usually try and I'll have little sessions where I'll deliberately try and catch up on what some labels have been writing, and always really shocked and stunned by the good quality of it. That's what I love about it. It literally it's not stagnant, is it? Like the scene, it moves forward all the time. And I remember there's a talk by the Prust, from Full Cycle, who said that when they were working on new forms, they kept listening to other writers in London and everything, going, "Shit, we haven't got this. We've got to go back to that." And there was a whole leapfrogging of
Mm.
ambition, and it still happens, obviously, even just by listening to stuff that other people are putting out, you have to step up your game, and you think, oh yeah, that's something I've got to aspire to. I love that about it. So I listen to drum and bass in sections and periods. But then, yeah, like the last album I bought was Andre 3000 has done a flute album. Have you heard it? The guy from
No.
Outkast.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah. Yeah. I've not heard that
Yeah,
album. No.
he's done an album with no lyrics, just a flute album, and yeah, that's the last album I bought. It's really good.
Okay, that sounds good. I've got to check that out.
Yeah, because you're over the Japanese flute, haven't you? You've got one.
Yeah, I got
There's
one
one that
over there.
he plays
Yeah.
one on the album, I believe. Yeah,
All
he
right.
bought a load of flutes. He just went and bought a load of flutes, made an
Yeah, they
album.
are. Yeah, they are an amazing instrument when played well. And yeah, sometimes they can just sound like so experimental, like depending on how they're played and the type of flute that's
Yeah.
used. It's epic.
Definitely, because they're more obviously because the breath involved. They're quite vocal. They can be really expressive.
Yeah, like I remember on the soundtracks of like I don't know if it was Snatch or Lock Stock, but there was like a couple of tracks on those like that were kind of flute focused and really like captured that sort of like I don't know, that British gangster kind of feeling.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird how they can be in that context as well. Because there's the hippie flute as well that I used to love when with sort of like almost hippie surf music with sort of floating sweet flute melodies over the top. Really, really sweet. Like a bit
Yeah.
twee, I know, but yeah, I like that.
What do you use for the like instrumentation that you do in your production? Do you get a bunch of virtual instruments, or have you ever like recorded in some stuff as well?
A bit of both, mainly more and more so because when I had a studio that had a vocal booth, say, I'd often go in with the guitar and play licks and stuff like that because it was easy. And if it's a real simple lick, I'll still do that. Or if it's an electric guitar, I'll do that occasionally. But I'm all over contact really, even sample. If I need say wind instruments, I'd use contact and play them in on the keyboard. It's because guitar is my first instrument. I'm not great on a keyboard. I know where everything is, but I'm not fluent. I couldn't play a
Mm.
piano riff start to finish or anything like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I can sort of, and I using pitch bend and that, you can get stuff to sound quite real. I quite enjoy the challenge, and then because it's like you're making your own sample in the way I would, use if I, write a flute part, it'd be like I've found the perfect sample.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
I
sometimes
would
it's nice to treat it like that and actually, put a bit of noise on it as if it had come from because it's obviously super clean coming out of contact and
yeah.
yeah,
I use that flute to make loads of pads. I think it's in a number of my tracks. Well, just because I can't really play it that well, I can basically just about make one note because it's so
yeah,
difficult to play that one. It's like blowing over a bottle and trying to make a like noise. It's really difficult
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah,
And like I'll just play like one note and then like record that in and then like just reverb it and make it like a pad or something like that.
yeah.
That's
It's weird, isn't
basically
it? It's there is something in recording something yourself about the richness of the harmonics. And it seems that I know sample packs get better and better quality all the time, and they are really good representations. But every time I use a real instrument, it's got loads of harmonics. Even with an average
yeah,
quality microphone, it's yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Like you're saying,
yeah, yeah,
if you end up like putting that into grains or into reverb, there's loads there to play with. Like
yeah, yeah. Have you done much of that with granular resampling or granular synthesis then?
in Contact, I have a play with
Con
it. It's
Okay, you can do that in Contact, right?
you can, yeah. And in fact, the very newest there's because you switch between modes in the sampling, you can have it just basically just behaving like an old school sampler, or you can have it behaving as a pitch shifting device, or
Yeah,
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 it's a really
yeah,
good sampler. I used to do it for resampling of basses. I used to
yeah. I remember like trying to learn it to do that years ago and then never really pursuing it.
yeah, because
Yeah,
for that it has to have some really nice filters to make you want to do it.
yeah,
And they're okay. They're okay. They don't add any great character though, the filters there. So
yeah. Just
yeah.
functional.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, man. That's awesome. I mean, you'd be fully prepared to make an orchestral piece of music then, I reckon, if you got a bunch of Contact sounds.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried doing it? Have you ever tried just for fun, like do it, trying to do like some sort of film scoring kind of vibe stuff?
Yeah, I did try, well, not so much film scoring, but I did sort of very atmospheric tracks that were I don't know if you know about like Sony BMG used to put out these CDs that end up in airports with names like Aztec Lounge and things like that. And
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
I got my music tech tutor got us into the writing these musics. You got paid for them and these pieces of music, but they had to be kind of 4 minutes long with loads of atmosphere,
mhm,
uh, kind of ambient groove. So they had like a sort of like the orb backbeat sort of like
yeah,
in the
yeah,
back
yeah,
and heavily very. So I had no choice but to sort of get all the ethnic instruments I could in
yeah,
the
yeah.
sampler and just learn how to play them and create instruments. And it wasn't really serious composition, but
No,
they had to make musical sense, and it did. It taught me a lot, and on quite a
yeah.
tight deadlines as well.
It teaches you a lot to compose intros and breakdowns for drum and bass as well, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Easily create atmosphere. Use the stereo width that you've got, and yeah.
Did you have
And
any
they would
real?
they would. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you have any real turning points in the last years or whatever when your production shifted? Because I don't really know what you were like as a producer, a couple of years ago or 3 years ago. I mean, was there
Yeah,
anything that sort of yeah, anything that clicked with you that made you become more, you know,
yeah.
content with your production in the recent
There
days?
was it was the focus on sound design that's a thing in itself that I don't know why I hadn't, because I did it almost as a matter of course, right in the jungle music that I can remember that bass isn't fat enough and we need and treating each thing as a something to solve and getting there. and I quite like it now and again when I do something now. I think, oh, actually, you half achieved that when we were writing Jungle with Massive. You know, being Contact Massive being the most cutting edge synth there was at the, and you know, now and again I use principles that they use then. And you've said things, you know, that layering an extra layer with some extra width on a synth after bouncing it, that was key with the earlier soft synths because they were quite thin in essence until you
Mm.
did something like that and double them. And I sort of arrived at that from, but watching your early tutorials, or for me the ones I first watched, which you know made sound design a thing in itself, and that's what changed it for me. And then I'd happily go to the PC and do a session where I didn't have a single track in mind, a track in mind, just make good noises. And that was a turning point for me. And happily do sessions like 4 or 5 hours just making good noises and
Yeah.
naming them sensibly and putting them somewhere. And I've used them all, and that's yeah, that was the turning point for me.
Okay, yeah, great. So, um, going back to the earlier thing about staying young and traveling, um,
Yeah.
because I know you're a big fan as I am as well. And I remember back in this was probably 9 years ago. I had a little apartment on the beach in Vietnam for 4 months, and I spent every day just making sound, making noises, making
Wow.
synths. I was trying to compose some tracks as well, but I ended up spending sometimes a whole day just messing around with the synth. It was Zebra 2 at the time that I was getting really into, and I was just trying to make like
Okay.
figure out how the hell do I create these bass sounds that other producers are making, like what goes into it, and just putting in hours and hours into synthesis and just
Yeah.
making stuff, and then going to the beach and stuff and enjoying the rest of the time in Vietnam.
That
um
sounds totally idyllic.
yeah, it was. I mean, the only reason I
Yeah.
sort of left was because they none of them have got any idea what drum and bass is, and the music they listened to there at the time was just terrible, and I had to
Yeah.
come back to the West just to like get some shows and stuff. But
Yeah.
what so you've traveled a lot, and tell
Yeah.
tell us a bit about your like kind of traveling journey. Yeah.
I Yeah, because well, when I retired from cycling, I was in Australia. My last season was spent in Australia. Uh, I had contracts to ride their track races over the Christmas period. So when when that ended, I was at the other side of the world anyway, and I'd really liked Indonesia on the way over there, but
Mm.
I was still heading to race. So I went back to Indonesia, spent a few weeks in Lombok, and completely got hooked on being, like I said, just I love that feeling of being slightly culture shock, getting used to a new culture, and so I went back to England briefly, to earn some money, and then went to back to Bali for a while, and then Lombok, but back to Australia where I got a really good job. But those days in Australia, it was literally like as advertised, you know, they enormous wages and that, and so I left Sydney with enough money to go to Asia properly. Spent some time in Singapore, Malaysia, and then I got a really good job on in Thailand, working with a Thai carpenter for about 9 months, building a what was going to become a resort, but it only had 3 bungalows when we started, and
Mm.
that was really nice.
You
Oddly
still in
enough,
touch? You still in touch? You're still in touch with them?
No, um, but
Okay.
one of my graphics customers is a Thai lady at the moment who from the same area, but I don't know if I've been back since though, and it's totally changed. All the bungalows
Yeah.
we built are still there, but they've got block toilets built on them, and they're part of an enormous resort. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, it's a lot different in Koh Chang now,
Yeah.
but yeah, brilliant, a lovely experience. Me and I had that situation where I'd work with him until about 4 or 5. Had every evening to myself in the hammock, learned to cook Thai food, and then when I went back to Thailand 6, 7 years later, got a job cooking in a different resort.
I love cooking
And
Thai
yeah,
food. Cooking Thai food is something I
yeah,
probably do very often. I cheat here. I just buy the pre-made pastes, but I have
yeah,
I have once or twice before made my own Thai curry paste. Like it's
fair
got
play, yeah,
so many ingredients.
yeah,
We tried to make it in England, and then you had to like substitute a lot of this stuff because you can't actually find it, because
very much so. Yeah,
it tastes so good over there just because it's all local ingredients.
I
Um,
know.
but yeah, man,
I've
like
never had food. It was so nice, and I learned to cook the second time there properly, and they've been good stead. We're going to open a cafe quite soon, and we'll probably have a Thai dish or two on that. And
what in England?
yeah, in
Yeah, so
Western Super
wait, so two more questions. So
Yeah.
firstly, one is how do you think travel has influenced your music writing ability? Because it has massively for me, like with inspiration and stuff like that. Has travel
Yeah,
directly like given you ideas for songs and stuff like that as well?
yeah, it has, but I've only started to realize it recently.
Yeah,
It's almost like a massively extended period of input. You know, if you look at as an artist, you you're creating stuff. You know, you're putting out what you've taken in, and
yeah,
if you don't experience very much, and that's why that situation you
yeah.
were
That's
in when
it.
you were sat
That's
on the
it.
beach making sound, that was brilliant because you were all output. You know, you were sat in a beautiful spot, but you were all output. But if you'd have done that indefinitely, you'd have run out of you'd have had no further different input. So like, I feel that you know you need to get that sort of when you're not writing music, but you're doing something stimulating. That's input. It may or may not end up in a tune. It might be
Yeah,
subliminal or just keeping the balance correct. But for me, it's almost like I had an enormous period of input.
yeah,
Traveling is almost amplified input, isn't it? Because
yeah.
you're much more than if you stay in the one place all the time. And that for that in that respect, I think it has given me so much to draw. And that like I say, I'm only recently learning to give every tune a story, you know,
Mm.
of which now I've got many to draw from. Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah. That's it. That's it.
yeah,
It's sometimes when you've lived a lot of interesting travel experiences and they will always remain part of your memory and they can often provide inspiration later, can't they,
yeah,
for something?
absolutely. Yeah,
Because yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. I think it's the whole input and having those life experiences in general that is that's the key thing. And then, you know,
yeah,
like you said, whether that's going to immediately be a song or whether it's just keeping the balance, it's
sure. And like for you, you had that period quite recently when it was almost immediate when you came back from the Middle East. You know you were straight
oh
away
yeah,
using noises and the atmosphere of where you'd been. And
yeah,
yeah, I like that.
that
It
was
shows, isn't it, how you know people's dream of a lot of people that I know who produce and work and struggle to fit in say, oh, I wish I could just be locked away in my studio. I'd come up with the best, just leave me alone for 2 years. But you wouldn't. You need to get out and about and
yeah.
to have something to write about. So yeah, whether short term or long term, it's really healthy.
Yeah, I need to get away again soon because I'm like a traveling addict completely, and I've been sitting still here in my little foxhole in Berlin for a while now, and it's I'm just like
Yeah.
I'm trying to train myself to like not rely on travel so much for my happiness, you know. But it's just like
Yeah,
difficult because I just really want to. I've been or I've already been to so many places, but I just still want to go to so many more.
yeah.
And
No, fair play. I was well envious of the South America trip as well. Like
oh
it
yeah,
looked like so much
have
fun.
you been out there yourself?
No,
Just
it's I've not been to. I've been in America. I've never, and the furthest south was in LA. So, but yeah, I've never been to South America at all. And again, from a food point of view, I just want to go and be spoilt by her family with meals for a couple of days. You know,
oh
like
yeah, yeah. I had Christmas with a Colombian family, and that was
nice one.
they invited me and yeah, just cooked for me, and that was just yeah. The Colombian food is great. It's a lot of meat kind of oriented. I don't know if you eat meat, but
I don't now, but I have most of my life. Yeah,
yeah. Well, they've got so many other interesting exotic fruits and vegetables, and like everything is just like better than it is over here. You
yeah.
know,
I
even the
don't doubt it.
avocados is like massive ones are just delicious. You know.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
Uh, Yeah. So what? But you're living in England now, aren't you?
yeah.
Yeah. So how
Um,
does that was my second question was like what having like done all this traveling and stuff, have you never thought, oh, I'd love to live out there or stay out there, or is it just other things that keep you in England, family or
yeah. Family essentially. Yeah, there was, and I did used to say to myself and my wife 20 years ago, England's the last place I want to find myself settling in.
yeah,
We did a lot of traveling together as well, and Ireland particularly because my family's from Ireland. We and my daughters were born in Ireland, so they're technically Irish, and we were quite settled there for 7 years, I think, and actually for a second period of a few years, and coming back to England was there. Coming back to England from there was it was difficult because my children were young and they went through the it's a bigger culture shock than you imagine between Ireland and England. If you're born in Ireland and your first experience of school in England, and obviously I've lived in both countries, so I knew what they were going to experience. But yeah, that was quite difficult. And having done that, I did feel reluctant then with young children to sort of and say, and now we're going to Goa. I just knew it wasn't appropriate. I mean, I'd
Okay.
love to. As it turned out, we did homeschool both of them for the last 2 years of school and till GCSEs, and so it would have actually been feasible to travel a bit during that. But I hope they travel. It's not as easy, I don't think, as it was when I set off first. I'm encouraged by yourself, actually. You're still obviously able to go where you want and experience good stuff.
Why do you think it's not so easy? I think it's more easy than ever these days.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Yeah, I suppose they've looked at a couple of trips and there's been a few obstructions that I hadn't expected.
Okay.
In Europe, like now, there is a little bit more. Well, if they want to go and live and work in Europe, I think it's a little bit more
Oh
difficult
yeah.
than when I.
Okay. Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah, perhaps. But yeah, so you've returned to the glorious land of rainy England.
yeah, and I mean, we're near Bristol, which gives it like a really good reason, and all of us have really enjoyed. I was living in Bristol when Full Cycle released their new forms, and in the sort of previous year before that, they'd been playing little venues in Bristol. It was such an exciting time, and that's the good thing about being in England, especially being near Bristol. The
Hmm.
music scene is really, really good here.
Yeah, that's amazing, bro. So,
Yeah.
can you give us a little teaser of any of the not like music listening to, but of the new stuff you're working on? Have you got any sort of
One of them is based around a painting I saw. One I saw a Kandinsky painting, which is obviously looked like a piece of music to me, like an arrangement that you had an idea for some noises and you've done a sketch. It looked like that to me, so I started straight away on that, and that's coming on nicely. And I found out afterwards he wrote the piece, he painted the piece, he painted it about a piece of music. But I
okay?
deliberately haven't gone and listened to the piece of music because I don't want that to, become the
Yeah,
reason for my tune. But yeah, that's um so yeah, I've used the sort of the shapes. It's an abstract piece, but it's divided in four. So I thought it could be a bar or it could be a 16 bar loop, and I've used the shapes in it to um when I do the track, I'll show you the picture of it. Yeah,
that's
and
interesting.
what's
Yeah, I've never been inspired by painting to make a song before. That's different. Yeah,
first time for me, but
yeah,
yeah, it just looks so like a scribble you'd make when I want a wiggly foghorn to happen here, and then I want to. If you try to draw it in little shapes, that's how it appeared to me. So I've interpreted it like that. Other tune, yeah, and I've got another tune which is I've been trying to write for a while, which is about those situations when everyone uh when loads of people in a room have taken stimulants and everyone's talking but no one's listening. I've been in too many situations like it, and I managed to avoid them now. But
yeah, yeah,
but it hit me hard at one point in one, and I thought I'm going to write a tune about this, and so I've tried to get the right sort of clips that say everyone's talking but no one's listening, and I'm at that stage. I've got some musical ideas down. I'm trying to find the right
yeah,
little clips to tell the story. The hardest thing about that was I thought, how do you musically say people are talking when I was listening? Is do you know the related to call and response
yeah,
is to have calls but no responses. Everyone's just calling. But musically, that's
yeah,
obviously
yeah, yeah,
difficult
yeah,
to
yeah,
make enjoyable. But that's where yeah. So that's
yeah. No, that's great, man. I love the detail going into the concept because that's what we need more of, you know. That's what we
yeah.
want. That's what gives birth to the most creative tracks then, doesn't it, always, when you've got
Definitely,
something
and
like
it,
that
it
behind
it
it.
gives them a better chance of being finished because
Yeah,
all of that listening to it when you think I need some background noise, I need a pad. We all know how many pads there are in every single synth we've got, and if you start listening to them going, "Oh, that's a nice noise," it might be a nice noise, but if it's not helping you tell the story, you can eliminate it straight away, and it just cuts down that whole
yeah,
selection process and focuses you. You will get the tune finished in that way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You need that focus to, otherwise you're just in the sea of ideas always, aren't you?
Yeah, you're back in sound design zone, but that's good. But you got to keep that separate, haven't you?
Yeah, 100%. No, that's great. I'm really glad that you're doing that. Um, yeah, man. What more can I say? Oh yeah. So, I mean, for me, it's just amazing that you seem so fit and healthy at your age, making drum and bass bangers. I know it inspires a lot of
Thank
people
you.
that I've talked to already. They're like, you doing that is inspiring a lot of guys I know that are like in their 40s. But like,
Yeah,
ha-
good. Yeah.
I think you're leading the way for some of these guys now with this story. So this is excellent.
Yeah, only a few years away from a bus pass, I could be getting to the studio free. Look, so
This is excellent. So you're living quite a sober life as well, aren't you, or not? I'm not actually sure.
not totally, but that I again, some of the things you said about being able to focus, the straighter headspace you have, I've taken that on board where I can, and like I say, I went from being almost a full-time hippie. So, but and I think I feel like I got a lot of it out of my system. So that by the time I got to this point of wanting to focus on it hard,
Yeah.
I can, yeah, be
Okay.
disciplined and focus on it. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's excellent, man. That's excellent.
I mean, I suppose I had the weird hangover from I finished doing a sport with this strange
Yeah.
capacity for stimulants, and yeah, that took a while to work out.
maybe it's still inside you a bit. The Pop Belge still working its way through, keeping you going.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, anyway, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's been epic to catch up and chat about all this kind of stuff. I could talk for ages about this topic,
sure,
but I think
same.
it's a good place to end the podcast, I think.
Yeah,
And yeah, great to have people hear a bit about your story, get an insight into you and your influences, and then
nice one,
relate that to your newest track, Pop Belge, which is going to be out now when this video comes out. So go and listen to it.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much again. Yeah,
No, thank you for your work and your music, and you're adding your little twist and coming up with some great concepts, and you can really hear that, I think, through the music. It sounds very different and it sounds very soZen, and you kind of got your own sound going, so that's great.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
thank you for the tutorials that helped me along the way as well. So
Yeah, excellent. Great to have you for a little interview today. And yeah, look forward to listening to what you come out with next.
I should definitely keep you posted on it. As I say, my time management is key at the moment. We're literally opening the cafe in the weeks as we speak, so I've got limited time. But yeah, I'll definitely keep you posted on their progress.
Yeah, no worries, no rush. Yeah, man, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for coming.
No problem. Thank you. Speak to you soon.
Take care.